Today I'm Tom Vallons, Managing Director of ITQ in Belgium and Luxembourg. Welcome to this new session of IT Conversations, where we will be talking about VMworld and Multi-Cloud. I am very happy today that I can present my guest, Filip Verloy, Staff Multi-Cloud Architect EMEA at VMware. Welcome, Filip.
Thank you. Hi, Tom. Good to be here.
Filip, we have been colleagues lots of years ago at VMware. In the meantime, you have done roles as technical business developer and field CTO at other companies in the industry. And now you come back to VMware.
That's right, yeah.
Why did you decide to come back to VMware, Filip?
Well, first of all, massive respect to Rubrik. I think it was probably the best time of my career so far. I think also if you're thinking about joining another company, you have to sort of run towards something, not run away from something. So you have to make it a positive experience. The idea really was that I talked to a lot of customers during my time at Rubrik, and they were all struggling with certain issues around, okay, how do I take my existing application stack, how do I modernize it, how do I take it into the multi-cloud? And the more I was thinking about that, I was sort of this light bulb moment, and like, I know a company that does that. Which is VMware, obviously. So, and then sort of stars aligned. Somebody reached out with this role, started talking, and sort of went ahead and jumped at the opportunity. Second thing is I also sort of realized that VMware was probably the company that I spoke about the most, even though I worked for another organization. So it's at the end of the day, it's about passion as well. Like I was still involved with things like the vExpert program. Presenting at VMUX whenever I could, presenting at VMworld obviously whenever I could. So it's sort of keep following your passion, which has led me back to VMware, and I'm pretty happy about it.
Good. What will you be focusing on this new role as a staff multi-cloud architect?
So I'm part of a global team of strategists and multi-cloud architects, and really the idea is that we focus on bringing existing customers from an on-premises environment into the world of multi-cloud. Yeah. This could be for existing enterprise applications, could be for modernized applications, think Tanzu, obviously. The idea is also that next to that pre-sales aspect, there's a big chunk of developing IP. So think of things like writing white papers, writing blog posts, doing videos like this, presenting at VMworld, hopefully going forward as well. So all of the cool stuff to keep evangelizing VMware. Yeah,
and this makes a nice bridge to the reason we're here. That's VMworld 2021. You're also a VMworld veteran. You already briefly mentioned it. You've participated in a lot of VMworlds before already. What are your general expectations of VMworld 2021?
So there's a lot of stuff happening at VMware itself as well, as you very well know. So we have a new CEO, Raghu Raghuram. For him, it's his first sort of VMware in the driving seat. He's been on stage quite a lot, of course, but sort of thought of as the man behind the scenes of a lot of the strategy that VMware went through in the last couple of years. But now, into the spotlight, if you will, as CEO. So looking forward to his keynote session. And then we also recently announced a new CTO, which is Mr. vMotion himself, Kit Colbert, which is actually an interesting story. He went from being an intern all the way to CTO. He worked on vMotion, as I mentioned before, but he was also one of the first people to really understand that we were going to this world of containers and containerized applications in 2016 and built a whole program around it. And now he ended up as CTO of the organization. So he's also going to present in that new capability. So definitely looking forward to that as well. But next to VMworld itself, there's also a couple of other things that are going on. So at day 0, we have this event called DevOps Loop, which is new. And the idea there is we're going to have a bunch of external speakers from Microsoft, AWS, Pulumi, talking about DevOps, but in the context of multi-cloud and modern applications. So that will definitely be very interesting as well. And we also have Code Connect. So Code Connect is both a opportunity to join a hackathon and to sort of build up your skills in IT automation, or just to learn about IT automation in general. So yeah, those are definitely the things I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and multi-cloud is obviously one of the key themes of VMworld this year. VMware is delivering multi-cloud services for all applications, is a statement that you very often hear. What are the highlights around multi-cloud that you expect from this year's VMworld, Filip?
Yeah, so I think you have to think about multi-cloud in a couple of different ways. So there's a lot of innovation that happened on the vSphere and VCF layer that we're sort of pulling from on-premises into the world of public cloud. So we have VMware Cloud, and we work with all of the hyperscalers when it comes to multi-cloud, obviously. So people tend to forget sometimes that, you know, this platform has been around for a very long time. There's a lot of innovation still happening there. And the nice thing is we have the capability now to bring that innovation into the world of multi-cloud. And as you mentioned, there's, you know, more traditional enterprise applications. There's also more modern applications, which today typically translates into managed via Kubernetes somehow. So we have to find a way to sort of do both operationally, because that's really the key for an enterprise is, well, you can run an application in a cloud of your choosing, you can run it on premises, you can run it in the edge, but how do you deal with day-to operations? How do you manage all of this in a way that's sort of governed and secure from an enterprise perspective? So I'm sort of looking forward to, you know, seeing how that all comes together at VMworld this year.
Yeah. No multi-cloud without modern apps, and no modern apps without multi-cloud, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
VMware is really helping customers today moving from a cloud-first policy to a cloud-smart policy, I would say. That sounds really great, but what does it really mean? Can you maybe give some examples or so?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So really, if you think about it, it's all about the application and enabling the application in the sense of the application dictates where it should run most appropriately. Yeah. So you can have an application with a certain, let's say, I/O profile that's better suited to running on premises, or you have an application which can, you know, take advantage by running in close proximity to a certain cloud service. Maybe you want to bring data close to something like an Oracle Autonomous Database, so you should run in the Oracle Cloud. Maybe you want to use, you know, AI, ML, and you should run your services close to the Google Cloud. So those sort of things dictate where an application is best suited. I think a while ago we had sometimes this mandate coming from the top down saying, oh, we're going to go all into Cloud X, but that really doesn't optimize for all of the application landscape that you currently have as an enterprise. So I think those days are finally gone. It's now about picking the best cloud for each application. And then if you think about it a layer deeper, it's about the 5 R's. I think Gartner came up with this. So what do you do with your application? Yeah. So I think it's retaining, rehosting, replatforming, re-architecting, or retiring. So the idea is, do I retain my application, but maybe run it on a modern VCF stack? So now I have all of these cool security and performance benefits that I can bring. Am I going to rehost it? So lift and shift. Can I just pick up my application as is today and move it into the public cloud because I'm going to get out of the data center hosting business. I have some consolidation that's going on. I want some scalability. I want faster time to market because COVID is restraining lead times on hardware, all of the usual suspects. Or do I want to re-platform? Can I somehow benefit from using containers and Kubernetes by modernizing my application in that sense? Or do I have to refactor it? Maybe your application is written using an old stack, using an older language, if you will, and maybe you can take advantage of modernizing the full stack, so complete rewrite, and maybe you look at Tanzu Labs, etc., to do that. And finally, you can just sort of opt to go for a SaaS solution. So maybe you want to retire your existing enterprise application and say, oh, I'm going to use Office 365 or something like that. I'm going to jump into a SaaS environment. And then, of course, you have to think about things like Workspace ONE, Carbon Black, VMware SASE solutions. So how do I secure access to those types of environments as well? So the nice thing is, whatever you end up doing, which is sort of best for your specific environment, there is a sort of solution from a VMware perspective to help a customer make that move and sort of go in the right direction.
Yeah, lots of solutions, choices to be made. The agony of choice when talking about multi-cloud is also a difficult one. You have VMware Cloud Foundation, VMC on AWS, AVS, Google Cloud, etc. How does a customer make choices? How should customers approach this, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So the idea is, I think you always should start with why. Like, what are you doing? So why are you trying to make this particular decision? What is your goal, both from a business outcome perspective as from a technology sort of decision you're trying to make, and then take that input to lead you to where you want to go in sort of this journey of which particular cloud makes most sense for me. And maybe it's the private cloud, or maybe it's the hybrid cloud, maybe it's the edge, maybe it's a specific hyperscaler. But ask yourself, why am I doing this, and what should the outcome be? I think to a certain extent we have a big toolbox in IT in general, and it's like a plumber that shows up at your house with a toolbox. There's a certain problem, and depending on the problem, he picks the right tool out of his toolbox. I think that's sort of the way you should think about multi-cloud as well, is there's certain aspects that dictate where or which cloud or which type of environment an application should run in. So I think that should drive it. There's of course also different reasons to pick a specific cloud. So there's maybe data sovereignty reasons, maybe there's no specific region in my country where I need to run my workloads on the public cloud. So there's other reasons as well to pick a specific cloud vendor. But it always starts with the question of why. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk to customers, that's always the first question we also ask, because you need to understand what a customer is trying to achieve, where he's trying to go, before you can really advise him correctly, right?
Absolutely.
And you have a VMware team as well as key partners like ITQ that can help customers make choices. So thank you for sharing all this wisdom and triggering us in with some key technologies and solutions that we'll hear more about at VMworld. I have one last question for you, Filip, before I let you go. There are so many interesting sessions if you look in the system in the session builder of VMworld. Are there some particular sessions that you would advise our viewers today to definitely watch?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to cheat a little bit and read the titles from my notes, because I didn't memorize them. I think the first one that I wanted to point out is VMware Cloud on AWS Outposts. So AWS also figured out that hybrid cloud is now a reality. They have designed outposts for exactly that purpose. And with VMware Cloud, we're now bringing that full circle. So we're now going to be able to run VMware Cloud services on Outposts as well, and I think that will be an extremely interesting session. Second one I wanted to point out is more about customers. I think what you'll see at VMworld in general this year is more and more customer stories. People talking about this is what we've actually been able to do with all of this technology, because technology for technology's sake doesn't really, make a lot of difference. So one of those sessions is a conversation with S&P Global, which is a financial services company based in New York, I believe. And they'll take us through their journey going from on-premises into the public cloud. I think they migrated about 1,000 applications into the multi-cloud. So that will be an interesting story to see. Another one I wanted to point at is, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of innovation happening in the on-premises VCF space. And one of those things is Project Monterey. So Project Monterey is taking things like smart NICs or IPUs or DPUs or NPUs, depending on the time of day or which marketing department you talk to. And the idea is of running ESXi services offloaded from the CPU. Yeah. So from a multi-cloud perspective, you can now have offloaded security services for multi-tenancy, for example, running out of that platform. So that will be a very interesting new technology. And then the final one I wanted to point out has nothing to do with technology at all. It's called VMware Friends Reunion on the next wave of infrastructure innovation. So this is really people from the early days of VMware coming together, having, I think, a nice dinner or a nice lunch. I have to see the session myself first, but the idea there is that It's people like Jerry Chang, it's people like Steve Haddad, ex-CTO of VMware, talking to our multi-cloud marketing director, and talking about stories of the old days and sort of what they see in terms of next innovation for cloud infrastructure and so on. So I think hopefully we'll get a lot of historical perspective, a lot of fun stories, and I think that's going to be a fun one.
I remember some keynote sessions delivered by Steve Harrod in the past. They were amazing. So thank you for giving this hint. I think I will also make sure to highlight this last session in my agenda. Filip, thank you very much for sharing all this with us. Now you hear it, I have 3 call to actions for you. First of all, make sure to enroll for VMworld 2021. Secondly, book your agenda in the session builder, and the numbers of the sessions Filip mentioned will be shown in the screen. And thirdly, make sure to subscribe to the ITQ YouTube channels to see much more IT conversations sessions talking about what to expect at VMworld, highlights and key takeaways.